December has some great Lunar Mansion elections, including the best prosperity election I've found all year on the 1st. Plus, talisman quality elections for disrupting the competition, growth and sexual potency, friendship and love, destruction, and more. Europe and the South Pacific got the biggest selection of Lunar Mansion elections this month, but folks in the US will still have some strong contenders. Let's get into those details now. Thanks for watching the December 2022 Lunar Mansion Guide. I'm Nate, aka Postmuggleism, and I'm coming to you from sunny Puerto Morelos, Mexico. I come bearing gifts as we head into the holiday season with a bunch of Lunar Mansion elections for you to work your magic on, regardless of where you are in the world. If you enjoy this video and find its information valuable, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. It'll go a long way to helping me get more viewers for my videos, and if you subscribe, you'll get notified whenever I post new content. Now, on to the magic of December. Real quick, let's look at all the Lunar Mansion elections for December, and which of the 4 time zones that I cover in this guide, PST, EST, CET, and AET, have suitable times for making talismans in each mansion. And once you know which elections you're interested in, you can use the links in the table of contents below the video to jump to the corresponding lunar mansions and skip the parts of the video that aren't relevant to you. And after previewing each of the elections very briefly right now, I'll review each mansion in detail, provide tips for working with it magically, and offer my take on the astrological configuration for each mansion this month and how that will affect the qualities of the talismans and the outcomes of spells. On the 1st of the month, PST and EST time zone get the best Lunar Mansion prosperity election of the year. This month's election in the 28th Lunar Mansion, the belly of the fish, has everything, with the waxing moon conjunct Jupiter in Pisces on Jupiter's day, Thursday. Before Jupiter left Pisces earlier this year, we had almost the same election, but the moon was waning, diminishing the positive effects a bit. But this one is the real deal with a waxing moon. A week later on the 7th, EST time zone gets one election as the moon enters the 6th lunar mansion, Hana, good for attracting friendship and love. And on the same day, PST time zone gets one in Dhira, the 7th lunar mansion, where prayers are answered. Then AET follows suit with another Dhira election on the 8th. On the 11th, CET time zone has an election in Jabhah, where the waning moon shifts the power of the mansion's fixed star Regulus, which is typically associated with curing illnesses, to providing aid against your enemies. Then on the 14th, CET has an election in the 13th lunar mansion, which grants its target sexual potency, growth, and attraction, followed by AET time zone on the 15th. All 4 time zones have opportunities to work the 16th lunar mansion, which under this month's waning moon can help you to grow your business by disrupting the competition. PST, EST, and CET have elections on the 18th, while it lands on the 19th for AET time zone. AET then gets the only election in the 19th lunar mansion on the 21st of the month, a truly malefic opportunity to wreak havoc and sow the seeds of destruction. Christmas Day is an opportunity for prosperity in Central Europe and the South Pacific, with elections in CET and AET time zones in the 24th lunar mansion, good for prosperity and increase. Finally, we come back around to the 28th lunar mansion again, but the astrology is nowhere near as good as it was at the beginning of the month. Still, PST has an election in this prosperous mansion on the 28th and AET on the 29th. Those are the viable Lunar Mansion elections for December, in a nutshell. Now I'll dive into more details, lore, and practical tips for each mansion. Remember, you can skip ahead to the mansions that are relevant to you using the links in the table of contents below the video. As I mentioned, the 1st of the month has a spectacular, best-in-class election for the 28th lunar mansion, Batn. Known as the belly of the fish, this mansion resides in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, who is, at this time, in Pisces and direct and conjunct the moon, who is finally waxing in this mansion after many months. I've been waiting for this alignment all year, to be honest, and I will definitely be making use of this election. The Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9 says that talismans made while the moon is in this mansion are good for gathering fish, which I interpret as abundance, since fish were a major commodity and source of wealth in the time of the Picatrix. But Book 1, Chapter 4 of the Picatrix expands this interpretation by including increasing merchandise and harvests, to travel safely, and to cause peace among its positive qualities, i.e. those things that you can do under a waxing moon, such as the one in December. The mansion's image is simply a fish, and I usually engrave the old loaves and fishes fish used by Christians on the back of their cars and such. The spirit of this mansion is Amnixiel. PST and EST have one election each on the first of the month, from roughly 12:50 to 1 p.m., featuring this most prosperous configuration of the waxing moon conjunct Jupiter in Pisces. A week later, on the 7th, the moon reaches the 6th lunar mansion, Hana, in Gemini, one of the 4 love mansions in the lunar calendar. The Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9 recommends creating 2 figurines and binding them together as if embracing as the image of this mansion. And this just goes to show how interpretive and metaphorical the images associated with the mansions really are. It's impossible to do this when you're making a talisman to wear. You have to visually interpret these instructions as 2 people embracing, and to me this suggests that the power is in the metaphor rather than in the image itself. This mansion has the power to bring people together, while the moon is waxing, as it is in December. The spirit of this mansion is Dhira. EST time zone has one election in this mansion around 11:30 p.m. on the night of Wednesday the 7th, while the waxing moon on the midheaven in Gemini trines Saturn in Aquarius. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, who's in the Saturn-ruled sign of Capricorn at this time, and this takes place on Wednesday, the day of Mercury. There's a lot of Saturn-Mercury synchronicity in this election, and Mercury naturally takes on the natures of any planets that it's configured with in the sky, which will lead to the influence of Mercury being applied in a structured and practical way in this mansion. The trine to Saturn with the moon in the domicile of Mercury and on the midheaven makes this election best suited to creating productive working relationships, or potentially winning the support of colleagues. The 7th lunar mansion, Dhira, is similar in some ways to Hana, as it resides in the twins of Gemini, and it can be used to create friendship or cause problems for kings. But it is also beneficial for prosperity workings, safe travels, and gaining favor from authorities. The image of this mansion is a man clothed in robes and with his hands extended to heaven as if praying. And the spirit of this mansion is Shaula. PST benefits from a waxing moon in Dhira this month, just before noon on Wednesday the 7th, while the moon is on the midheaven and trine Saturn. The positive, structured energy of this configuration will tap into Dhira's best qualities, aiding in creating friendly, productive relationships, attracting the favor of officials, and, according to the Picatrix, Book 4, Chapter 9, whatever you wish that pertains to good things. AET's election in this mansion takes place on the evening of Thursday the 8th, while the freshly waning moon is on the ascendant and trine Saturn. The Picatrix lists only one quality for Dhira that could be construed as negative, to destroy officials. But as I'm a bit of an anarchist anyway, I don't necessarily see that as traditional malefica. The talisman for Dhira, according to the Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9, is for any and all good things, and the story of the twins of Gemini, Castor and Pollux, ends with Pollux's prayers to Zeus being answered and his mortal brother being saved from death. Since all of this seems pretty positive, I'm forced to assume that Dhira is one of the universally good mansions, and that it stays good even when the moon is waning. If so, this gives AET's election in Dhira the same conditions as PST's, though perhaps a little bit more weakly than it would be under a waxing moon. Royal fixed stars are powerful stellar spirits, and so it's no surprise that when such a star occupies a lunar mansion, the qualities of that mansion are heavily influenced by the nature of the star. Under December's waning moon, the 10th lunar mansion, Jabhah, shifts from the softer side of its fixed star Regulus, used for curing illnesses, to its king-slaying vibes, providing aid against one's enemies. Further emphasizing the influence of Regulus, the eye of the constellation Leo, The image of the mansion is the head of a lion, and its spirit is Ardesiel. Sunday the 11th, the moon moves into the 10th mansion and trines benefic Jupiter while conjunct the ascendant around 7 in the evening in CET time zone. Because of the trine to the greater fortune, I would treat this election as essentially a victory talisman, but where your victory is assured through the defeat of your enemies. Like Hana, the 13th lunar mansion, Awwa, is a mansion for love. But unlike Hana, it's not about friendships or partnerships, but carnal love, physical attraction, and sexual potency. Along with sex, it brings that same impressive growth to almost any issue. Picatrix Book 1, Chapter 4 includes increase of trade and profit and harvests, good journeys, strengthening of buildings, and receiving good from officials among its qualities. Another all good, no bad, positive mansion. You can't go wrong with Awwa, and the waning moon in December does nothing to dampen my enthusiasm. The mansion's image is a man desiring to couple with a woman, which I think can safely be interpreted as an erect man, and the spirit of the mansion is Jezreel. CET has one election in Awwa, on the night of the 14th around 10 p.m. with the moon on the midheaven and trine Mercury and the south node. AET has one election on the 15th around 4:20 p.m. with the moon on the midheaven, trine Mercury, Venus, and the north node. The trine with the south node in the CET election may require that something be lost or abandoned to satisfy Ketu's purgative nature. In the AET time zone, though, trines to Mercury, Venus, and the north node create favorable conditions for trade and profit, attraction, and good from officials in particular. The mercantile vibes of Zubana, the 16th lunar mansion, are immediately apparent. The mansion occupies the scales of Libra, and its image is a man seated in a throne and carrying a scale in his hands. And Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9 says talismans made with the moon in this mansion are for anything related to buying and selling. What's interesting is that Book 1, Chapter 4 lists mostly malefic qualities, while sticking to this mercantile theme. In this mansion, make images for the destruction of merchandise and harvests and plants, and to put discord between friends and between man and wife, and to impede those who journey. These are all concerns of merchants: merchandise, harvests, relationships with friends, between husband and wife, often working together, and journeys. Zubana, in contrast to the last two mansions, is what I call a neutral mansion, with both good and bad effects depending on the phase of the moon. In December, the waning moon will tap into the destructive energies mentioned in Book 1, Chapter 4, and my take is that these elections are best suited to generate prosperity by disrupting the competition. The spirit of this mansion is Azaruel. PST has two elections in Zubana, overnight, featuring a trine to Saturn, and again in the early morning of the 18th with a sextile to the sun. EST has just the overnight election, and CET just the morning one, but both feature the trine to Saturn. And in AET, the overnight election features the sextile to the sun. Now, the sextile to the sun is far weaker than the trine to Saturn, and Saturn is a better fit for binding the competition anyway. The effect of the sextile won't be strong enough for a talisman, but might be suitable for a short-term spell. In December, the election in the 19th mansion is only available in Central Europe and is decidedly malefic. Perhaps the most malefic election I've ever featured in this video series. Shaula is associated with the flow of blood, be it on the battlefield or in menstruation. In fact, Book 4, Chapter 9 of the Picatrix says that talismans made under this mansion are good for the hastening of menses, and that it will cause blood to flow for money. Curiously, though, it is also attributed with the ability to make childbirth easy. But women are not the only targets of this mansion, and the others do not fare as well. Book 1, Chapter 4 says that it is also useful if you need to besiege cities, to destroy wealth, expel men from places, destroy ships, separate allies, and kill captives. In fact, the Picatrix even generalizes to do whatever else of this kind you wish, so this mansion is a multi-purpose tool of destruction. Not too subtly, the image of the mansion is a woman holding her hands before her face, as if crying. Its spirit is a Mutiel. Only CET time zone has the power to destroy this month with Shaula. Overnight on Wednesday the 21st, when the waning moon in Scorpio, ruled by a retrograde Mars, squares Saturn in Aquarius. It's a nasty election, and I would definitely take a salt bath after working in these conditions, if you must. Christmas Day is a time of cheer, and also prosperity this year, particularly in Australia when the moon stations in the prosperous 24th lunar mansion, Al-Sad Al-Sud. This mansion is about protecting your resources and about your station in life, and Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9 says that it is for the increase of herds. I take that to mean that it increases and protects resources, thereby generating prosperity. Book 1, Chapter 4 adds that it's used to increase merchandise and profit, to cause goodwill between couples, and have victory over your enemies. Also that it can be used to destroy the riches of allies and prevent an official from fulfilling his duties. But those feel like strategic moves which might be used to protect your position socially or politically, and thus fits the theme. The spirit of the mansion is Abrinael, and the image is a woman with her son in her arms as if nursing. AET has one election in the early afternoon on Christmas Day, the 25th of December, featuring the waxing moon in Capricorn on the midheaven, sextile Jupiter in Pisces. I would suggest using this election for a short-term spell rather than a talisman, because there's only a sextile to Jupiter, and because it so happens the moon is also conjunct Pluto. Now, I don't typically factor outer planet transits into lunar mansion elections, but with Pluto, there is always the chance of hidden surprises, so proceed with due caution. Back to where we started, the 28th lunar mansion offers a second set of elections in December, this time in PST and AET time zones. These are not nearly as good as the ones on the first because Jupiter has moved out of lucky Pisces, its domicile, and into angry Aries. Jupiter benefits from acceleration from this combustion engine of martial energy, but it's just not as kind or as fortunate as it is in a sign of its domicile. Still, in a pinch, this election works for short-term spells and the like. The 28th mansion, known as the belly of the fish, is good for attracting abundance. Its spirit is Onyxiel, and its image is a fish. PST has one election in this mansion when the waxing moon on the ascendant sextiles Mercury and Venus mid-morning on the 28th. AET has a much better election with the moon conjunct Jupiter on the midheaven, sextile Mercury. In a pinch, you could consider making a talisman during this election, but Jupiter in Aries is hard-charging, combustible energy, so beware. This wraps up the December 2022 Lunar Mansion Guide. Thanks for watching. I hope December has an election or two that caught your interest. If you're new to Lunar Mansion Magic, you might want to check out the resources section in the back of this presentation, which is linked in the description below the video. In that section, you'll find links to other resources on Lunar Mansion, and my guides, videos, etc. about lunar mansions and their rituals. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions, comments, or feedback on this resource. You can find me on social media as Postmuggleism, and you can find all my content, articles, videos, and more at my new website, www.postmuggleism.com. Subscribe to my email list and get all of my content sent conveniently straight to your inbox so you never miss anything. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button so YouTube will show this video to more people like you. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.